Have you ever heard anyone say, God doesn't answer my prayers? Or maybe, I can't tell the difference between my own thoughts and the Spirit. Or maybe, I just wish God would tell me what to do and I would do it. Maybe you said that yourself. I know that I've said that many times, and I know the incredible amount of frustration you can have when you're trying to be a good person, you're trying to move forward, and you don't feel that sense of connection. You don't feel like you can ask a question and get an answer from God. It can really start to wear down your faith. You get to a point where you say, well, God must just not like me. Or maybe you even get to the point where you say, well, I haven't received anything, so maybe there's not a God at all. When I was a kid, I remember my brother and I used to build towers out of Legos, and we would build them until they would reach like that close to the ceiling. And they were only 1 block thick, and so they were really unstable. If you got too close to them on carpet, they'd fall over. You could just stand and blow on them from a distance, and they would fall over. I used to feel like that. I used to feel like that in my soul, because I didn't have that sense of connection with my higher power. And I didn't feel like I could go to him and ask a question and get an answer. It was a horrible feeling, and it really hurt my confidence. And I'm really happy that I have now grown to a point where I feel confident, I feel comfortable, I feel stable inside. I feel like I can ask a question and get an answer. More or less, I'm still learning in this process. But I feel a sense of connection to him like I've never had before. So I've kind of come to this project with the thought in mind, like, what could I, if I could build a time machine and go back and talk to myself when I was 12, what would I teach myself? Because man, I stumbled along. It was rough. Adolescence is rough anyway, but when you don't feel that confidence, you don't feel that connection, it's harder. And while the struggle was helpful and taught me a lot, wouldn't it be great if you could like cut some of that struggle out? I think of all the years that I spent struggling, and part of the struggle was like me moving forward, and part of the struggle was because I just kind of backed off and gave up for the time being. Now, if you took all the unnecessary struggle out of that and condensed the good struggle of moving forward, how much faster would you be able to get to your goals? I'm telling you, I think I could have cut 10 years out of this process. I could have gotten so much closer to him, so much faster, if I had the right knowledge and the right tools. These principles that I'm going to teach you work, and I know that not just theoretically. These are all things that I've tried, and these are things that have helped me to get closer to my higher power, and they have been responsible for many incredible experiences. And those experiences to me have been a powerful truth, a powerful evidence for the existence of my higher power. I can't deny the experiences that I've had. I can't prove anything scientifically, but for me, I believe he's there. And I continue to move forward, having more experiences that continue to back that up. And with that has come a confidence and a solidarity of character that I didn't get any other way. So this next couple of weeks, this next couple of months, as you go through this program and apply these tools, it's going to be incredible. You're going to have so many cool experiences. You're going to bump into some walls, and it's okay. I'm going to walk you through those, but you're going to learn. You're going to have some amazing experiences with your higher power, and you're going to come to know or believe on a much deeper level that he is real, that he loves you, and he wants to talk to you. So you're probably thinking, who is this guy? What does he know? First of all, I'm no prophet. I'm nobody special. I'm just a guy who's been trying to get closer to my Father in heaven. And I'm not revealing any new doctrine or anything. I'm simply here to teach you the tools that have worked for me and the principles that I think are the most important for us to understand how revelation works, how to get answers to our prayers. If you are watching this now, then this is for you. I believe that coincidence is largely God's way of remaining anonymous. And if you have been led to this, if you stumbled across it, if someone said, hey, check this out, then this is for you. It's the time for you to learn what you need to learn so you can have the relationship that you want. I'd like to share a quote with you from Dr. Mary C. Neal. She's somebody who died, went to the other side, and then came back. And as I've noticed with like almost every near-death experience book I've ever read, When they come back, they're much less focused on which religion is right and how we're different from each other, and they're just focused on love. She said, "I've always appreciated the variety of religious denominations that are present in our world. Their different styles of worship and ways of communicating offer people in different stages of their life and spiritual journeys an opportunity to find the place where they feel most comfortable and a place where their faith can grow." I know that some religions will focus on some truths more intensely than others. And by learning about the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, I learned truths that aren't a huge part of my religion. You'd have to really dig for them. It's made me a much better Mormon and a much better spiritual person by knowing those things. So I'm all about accepting truth from whatever the source. Okay, before we dive in to the basics of what you need to know, I want to give you a little bit more of an in-depth look at where this series is going to be headed. In the first video, we're going to be clearing the roadblocks between you and God. The beliefs that we have can effectively block us from hearing the voice of God. And so you're going to learn about the things in this video that you probably aren't even aware might be problems. And if you miss these basics, you're going to be frustrated. These are the prerequisites that we need to go over before you can connect well. And I've got assignments on each of these videos. Sometimes they're a separate video and sometimes they're just at the end of the video. But it's doing the work here, doing the practice that's actually going to make a change in your life. You don't want to skip them. You're actually going to get the results if you do the work here. But if you're just here to listen to something interesting, well, yeah, you'll get that, but it's not going to change your life. And aren't you here so that things can be better? So commit yourself that you're going to do the homework in each one. Video number 2, we're going to go over the facts of how revelation actually works, the mechanisms and the theological science, how your mind and your body work together, what the Spirit's like, and different types of revelation, different ways that he communicates with us. In video 3, clearing the mind, this is how to get rid of the clutter. It's super hard to hear the Spirit when your head is a mess, and this video is going to teach you what you need to have in order to gain some peace so that your mind can be calm and clear. Video 4 is tuning the heart, and this is where we concentrate on the feelings of the Spirit. How does the emotional circuitry come into play as it pertains to revelation? And how do you tune your emotions into the right channel so that you can get in tune with the Holy Ghost? It's how to find that peace so that you can hear the Spirit. Video 5, after you've learned to clear your mind and tune your heart, you're ready to connect. So video 5 is about that. It's about how to connect with God, how to project your awareness and your desires, how to pray with power and faith so that your prayers don't just like bounce off the ceiling. Video 6 is how to hear. This is going to be a little bit of a deeper dive into how to recognize the Spirit, what it's like, and how to know when you're getting revelation, how to start telling that apart from your own thoughts. Video 7 is how to get answers to prayers. This is how to approach prayer and answers to prayer methodically so you can troubleshoot problems. When you aren't getting an answer, what do you do next? This is what we're going to cover here, and I'm going to go over the common reasons why we may not be getting answers. Video 8 is obstacles to connection. Even after you've got the prerequisites in place, there are some predictable things that can pop up that can block us from connecting with the Spirit. Things like fears or negative emotions. You might be ready to get answers and you might be doing that part completely right. But if, for example, you're holding a grudge, that could be the reason you don't feel close to God on a daily basis. Those things could be keeping you from enjoying the Spirit with you more consistently. And then in number 9, we're going to put everything together. We're going to review everything that we've gone into because there's a lot. This is a very detailed series, and sometimes it's easy to get lost amongst the trees and not be able to find the forest. So it's going to be a summary of everything we've gone through. It's going to be simple and concise, but I'm going to also go through it sequentially a couple times. And this way, you can get the Reader's Digest version that you can remember in a minute, and then a little bit longer of an explanation just to hit all the highlights and the important points. This is going to be something that it'll be really helpful to go back and review every couple of months, just to make sure you haven't forgotten anything vital. So that's where we're going to be going with this. I hope you're ready to dive in. Now, as you go through this process, you're going to have doubts arise. It's natural. When you start moving towards a goal, it just has a tendency to squeeze all the gunk and make it rise up to the surface. And maybe some of you are thinking, if God's never talked to me before, why now? What would be different about this time? I used to feel that exact same way. And for many years, I thought that I couldn't hear him. And one of the most profound truths that I have learned is that he is talking. It's just that we are not listening. You hear him. I can tell you, you've heard him before. Without a doubt, absolutely, you've heard his voice. The problem is, you might not have believed it. You might not have noticed it. But you definitely probably didn't believe it. For so many years, Heavenly Father was trying to tell me that I mattered. He was trying to tell me that I was worth something. And every time he'd tell me that, I wouldn't believe it. He's trying to talk to you. He's been trying to get your attention desperately, maybe for years. As you begin to believe that you have the ability to hear already, you're going to realize how much has been there this entire time that you've been missing. It's not a matter of getting yourself to some level of spirituality or righteousness. He wants to communicate with you right as you are now in all of your imperfection. But if you're stuck in your imperfection thinking about how bad you are or how far you are from him, that's going to act as a wall. Your personal worthiness, your view of yourself and your goodness is one of the first major hurdles that you may have to face. I know for me that was number one. I did not start to hear God and believe him and know that I was hearing him until I started to actually think that I had some value. Until I finally believed that I was worth him talking to me. So he's been reaching out. And it's time to put aside your doubts and just believe it. You may as well. You might as well just believe him. Now, this program, it's like anything else in life. You are going to get out of it what you put into it. It's just like every other thing. If you bring 100%, you bring your A game, you put it all in, you're going to get massive results. But if you approach this just kind of like, I'll try it a little bit, you're only going to get a little bit. So this is up to you. I've given you everything you need here, all the knowledge you need to move forward. You just have to do it. That's going to be the struggle. So commit yourself now. Figure out the reason why you want this. Think about how great it's going to be when you get it. And let that propel you forward so that you give 100%. You will not regret that. All right, so assuming you've cleared up or at least now aware of how your own personal value can get in the way of hearing God, let's get to the first thing. And it starts with a question. Why do you pray? And I'm not asking that rhetorically. I want you to answer that for yourself. What is your intention when you pray? What are you trying to get out of the experience? Are you doing it because you feel a sense of duty? Like, I have to pray or God's going to be angry at me? It could be out of fear. It could be out of duty. Do you pray because you love him? Do you pray because you need his help and maybe you're in a pinch? Why do you pray? The answer to that is so important because the scripture says, seek and ye shall find. So if you're seeking to pray because you're afraid, you'll find the type of relationship where you're not really connecting because your motivation is off. You're doing it the wrong way. Or at least you're doing it in a way that doesn't produce the highest and the best results that you could be getting. So the question then becomes, what is God's intent for us? Why would he want us to pray? What motivation should be driving us? There's a story I really like in the Old Testament. There's some wacky stories in there, but wow. There's one I really like where there's some people in the camp of Israel while Moses is leading them through Sinai, and they start prophesying. And some people hear the prophesying, and they run to tell Moses, and they're like, Moses, oh my gosh, these guys are prophesying, tell them to stop. And Moses' answer was telling. Are you jealous for my sake? Would God that all the Lord's people were prophets, and the Lord would put his Spirit upon them. In other words, Moses wanted the people to be as close to God as he was to God. He wanted everybody to have that. And remember, there was a point where the Lord on Sinai said, hey, get the children of Israel ready. I want them to come up and meet me face to face. And do you know what happened? They were afraid. They're like, no, Moses, whoa. Hey, you handle that. If we go up there, we're going to die. You just talk to him. You tell us what he tells you. And so that was the relationship they had with him. They chose to have a lower level relationship, one based out of obedience because of fear. And because they were on that childlike level, God gave them a childlike law. He's like, fine, you don't really want to know who I am and what I'm like? I'm going to have to keep you little kids in line. So here's a very strict law with performance and ordinances, a bunch of crazy stuff just to keep them constantly in remembrance of him, because they weren't ready for anything more. If you reject a greater relationship with God, he has to honor that. He's never going to force that on you. I think God is far more loving, far more compassionate, and far more willing to bless us, far more gracious than we can possibly imagine. I mean, he says, you guys, even you know how to give good gifts to your children. So how much more am I going to give you things? When you ask for bread, I'm not going to give you a rock. I'm going to give you bread. And I think too many people put up fences and say, God can't come any closer than this. Or he wouldn't come any closer than this. And we're basically saying, no thanks, God. You can stop right here. This is fine. Yet the scriptures are full of these sayings that indicate that he wants more for us, so much more. That scripture in Revelation of Christ, I stand at the door and knock. And if you get up off your butt and answer the door, he'll come in. It says he'll sup with us. He'll dine with us. He wants to be close to us. Closer than we can possibly imagine. He wants us to come into his presence. Just like Moses, who saw him face to face. Most people think, well, I'm just going to live out my life and then I'll die and then, I'll eventually meet God. Why wait? Why would you want to wait for something that awesome? If you can get there in this life, wouldn't that be nice to be able to enjoy? So what should your intention be as you pray? Full communion. You want to be one with him. Just like Jesus prayed for in John 17, he prayed that we might be one with him just as he is one with the Father. He wants us all to be that unified. He wants us to be that close to each other. He wants to give us everything he has. So your intention when you pray should be communion, oneness. You just want to soak in all the brine, soak in all the goodness of being close to him. Because the closer you are, the faster you change. So pray with the intention to connect with him. Now we are going to get way further into what that means. We're going to really explore it in a future video, but keep that in mind. So we talk about having a relationship with God. Some people talk about having a personal relationship with God. And the question is, what kind of relationship do you want? What do you want that to look like? On what level? Because you can have a relationship with a dog. You can have a relationship with a 6-year-old. You can have a relationship with a peer. Do you want him to be interacting with you on a level of like, hey, we're talking about the same stuff. I'm going to treat you like an adult, and I'm going to give you adult type rewards. Or do you want to be treated like a 6-year-old? A lot of the time, I think we approach God from a very childlike point of view. And of course, there's nothing wrong with remembering that we're his children, and we need to go to him for guidance and let him lead us. But I want to come to him with boldness. And I want to receive more, and I don't want to be treated like a kid always. Because I'll always be his child, but I don't always have to be like a kid. Alright, so you want to approach him maturely. You're not going to think of him like a helicopter parent who's only there to bail you out when you have problems. You're going to approach him like an adult, but still like a child who's going to a father for mentoring, for advice, for guidance, because he's smarter than you, and he's going to guide your life. Now, there's one other problem. How well can you see me right now? Could you pick me out of a police lineup? Let me share a quote with you from C.S. Lewis. In other sciences, the instruments you use are things external to yourself, things like microscopes and telescopes. The instrument through which you see God is your whole self. And if a man's self is not kept clean and bright, his glimpse of God will be blurred, like the moon seen through a dirty telescope. That is why horrible nations have horrible religions. They have been looking at God through a dirty lens. So that's a little better. You can see me clearly. So just like ketchup on the lens of the camera can obscure your view of me, your view of yourself can obscure your view of God. And not just of yourself. Let me explain how your brain works a little bit. It's an associative thing. You've got a file folder in your brain called dads, father figures, authority figures. And if you open that file, it's got every experience that you've ever had with a father figure or an authority figure. And you're going to take those experiences and project them onto God. Now, just like the stuff on that lens blocked your view, that's going to obscure your view of what God is really like. If you're putting this like cold, distant, authoritarian thing on him, that's not who he is. And here's where that becomes a real problem. You're not connecting with him. You have a false view of him. And if you see him that way, you're not going to want to connect with him. You're going to want to keep your distance and not make him angry. So having a warped and distorted view of God will stop you from connecting with him. So we've got to start with your view of God. Have you ever been set up on a blind date? The first question you have is, tell me what they're like. You want to get a good idea of what their characteristics are like, what their personality is like, so you can get an idea of whether you'd actually like this person. So if we want to get to know God, we need to know what his attributes are. We need to know what his personality is like. Like, what kind of a guy is he? If you don't know what he's like, you don't know him. And the Bible says it pretty clearly. God is love. Now, when you think of love, the greatest love you can remember that you've ever felt, that you've ever experienced from someone else, that's like a candle versus the sun. That's the difference in strength. You don't have any idea what his love is like. And part of that is because we have some baggage about love. We've heard people say love a lot in not very loving contexts. There are unfortunately some families where love just basically means commitment. You yell at each other, you swear at each other, you throw vases at each other's head, but you're committed, so you love each other. Okay, so we need to go through the components of love. When we're talking about God's perfect, pure love, there are a couple of subsections, and we're going to go over that. First of all, you could define his love as like being genuinely nice, but on such a deep level. If you went to his house, he would greet you on the porch and he'd give you a big hug, and it'd be a little longer, you'd feel a little awkward, but he's just like, oh, I love you so much, it's so good to see you, come in, sit down on the couch, take off your shoes, kick your feet up, hey, do you want dinner? I'm making something awesome. You would feel so much warmth and hospitality from him, it would blow your mind. And his love never stops, ever. The strongest couple in the world, they can say they love each other, but divorce could eventually happen. People are imperfect, their love is imperfect, our love is not full and complete. His is. He never stops loving you, no matter what you do. Now, his love is patient. Think about our growth and our progress. We're moving forward in life and we fall on our butt and we get up and we start again, and it takes us so long to change. Now, that can be really frustrating when you're a parent of a teenager and you just want them to change. But God's more like a parent of a 1-year-old. He doesn't get upset as they're learning to walk. We know that it's part of the process. They're going to be wobbly. They're going to need to spend a lot of time just keeping their balance. And then they have to start trying to take their first steps, and they're going to fall over so many times. So much failure, if you want to call it that. Parents don't get upset. They know it's part of the process. And God's like that. All of the mistakes that you feel bad for, he's okay with. He knows that you're growing. Part of his love, part of who he is as a person, he can see through time. There is no time for him. It's past, present, and future, all the same. He already knows the best version of you. He knows where you're going to end up after this life. And so he's not upset when you fall down. He's not upset when you fail. He sees the full picture. So even though you're impatient with yourself, he is not. He is merciful. He will forgive you time and time again, even when you don't think you deserve it. You could kill his dog, and he would forgive you for that. He wouldn't hold a grudge. He wouldn't have any ill will in his heart toward you. He's also super generous, like ridiculously so. Let me share a scripture with you.
Thus saith the Lord, I the Lord am merciful and gracious unto those who fear me, and delight to honor those who serve me in righteousness and in truth unto the end. He loves to bless us.
He's also, you could say, unprovocable. Like, as long as you're trying to be a good person, he's not going to get upset. You can't make him mad. Now, did Jesus get mad? Yeah, when he cleaned out the temple, but those people had set up this filthy den of thieves in his holy house. So, yeah, he can be stern. He can reprimand like a parent needs to, and he can cleanse that temple. But during that entire process, Jesus never hated those people. He never felt hatred towards them at all. He is also like a mentor. Remember, you're the child, he's the parent. He's the smart one who's going to give you guidance. So he's going to tell you what the best thing is to do for you, even if you don't like it. Like eating your vegetables or going to school and doing your homework. He loves you and he wants the best possible outcome for you. So he's always going to tell you the best thing for you personally. Now this one can be hard to accept, but you don't have to do anything to impress him. He loves you as you are right now in all your flawed glory. There's nothing you need to do to impress him. He's not going to get disappointed with you. Remember, he sees the end from the beginning. Like, if you feel like today you've got a good relationship with him, and then the next day you sin, I've gone through this so many times. You think, oh no, he's angry at me now. Oh, he's disappointed. Oh, he's upset. Like, he already knew it was going to happen. You thought everything was good because you didn't know what was going to happen the next day. But he saw it coming. He's not going to change the way he feels about you when you mess up. That's a hard one to accept and bring into your heart, but you've got to. He's okay with you just where you are. And he wants you to accept yourself just where you are in all your imperfection. So that's what God's like. That's his personality. He gets such a kick out of blessing you and being generous and giving you stuff. And it's got to be so hard for him to have his children down here who don't have any memory of him. And they project all their crap onto him and they think he's mean and vengeful and hateful. When he is such a kind and merciful person. That's got to be rough. So in addition to knowing these things and who he is, you're going to need to know a couple of the laws of the universe that govern all things. Because he may be the boss, but the rules, they've been there the whole time, and he is God because he lives by those rules. So he can't bend these. And one of them is this. He's the greatest guy in the universe, and his love just like burns like a star, and if you were in his presence, it'd just melt you. But your ability to feel that love is dependent on you following his commandments. Your connection with him, in part, is determined by how willing you are to be obedient. In order for his love to flow into your heart and not just hang there waiting, you've got to take action. That's a rule that's not going to change. You control the closeness you have with God. So, based on these universal rules, like this is kind of like with parents and their kids, they don't want them to eat sugar and they want them to eat their vegetables because they know that there are certain principles and laws that just exist. They're part of reality. Too much sugar can lead to diabetes and obesity and depression and inflammation and all that. Now, kids don't know that. Kids just want to eat candy all day. And we're like that too. We want to do whatever we want and have no consequences. But that's not the nature of the universe we live in. So in order to keep us healthy and happy and safe and provide us with the best outcomes, he's going to give us rules based on those laws. So his commandments are guidelines based on true principles that are just never going to change. If you follow his commandments, it's like the wise man who built his house on the rock. You're firm and you're steady. If you want to experience more of his love, try harder to keep his commandments. And hear me when I say this. If you're trying right now, cool, you're good. You can only do as good as you're doing. You don't need to try for the impossible. You don't have to be perfect. He's rational. He doesn't expect you to do more than you can do. So if you only have a certain amount of strength, run that fast and don't try to go any faster. This is more of a marathon. This is not a sprint. All right, so far we've talked about a lot. Let's summarize this. First, you've got to believe that you're worth it, that he wants to have a relationship with you, and that you can. Second, you have to see him clearly. If you want to know him, you have to know what he's like, and he has every good adjective you can think of. Third, he's trying to get you to live the life that he lives right now. Because living that life, being a type of person who's patient and loving and merciful, that's how you get the most joy. He has never given any commandment that was not calculated to bring you the most happiness, the most joy and fulfillment. Everything he asks you to do is for your benefit, and if you do it, you're going to be happier. Fourth, you are in control of the relationship. If you feel distant from him, he didn't move, it was you. This should be exciting because you've got all the power here. I mean, God's omnipotent, but he's like, nope, 100% of it. You take a step forward, I'll take a step forward. You take a step back, I'll take a step back. He's super respectful. He's never going to push himself on you. So you've got full control. That's empowering. All right, so back to this question of what a good relationship with him is going to look like. What kind of relationship do you have with an acquaintance? Or more specifically, in order to have an acquaintance type relationship, what sort of things do you talk about? Probably doesn't go very deep. It's like light, water cooler talk, sports and weather. If you want to have a deeper relationship with someone, like a best friend, you're going to be sharing more. You're going to be self-disclosing more. You're going to be talking about your fears and your goals and your needs, all that stuff. If you want to build intimacy with a human being, with your spouse, have heart-to-hearts. Talk about everything. That's a huge determining factor in how close you are to a person, is how much you share. That's what determines your intimacy. So same with God. Open up, have hearts-to-hearts, and you're going to be closer to him. Now, if prayer starts to seem boring or you catch yourself stuck in vain repetition, saying the same thing, bless me with, thank you for... If you catch yourself in that mode, you've probably lost sight of the fact that he's a real person. You're having a conversation. You're not here to say prayers. This isn't about spitting out some sort of rehearsed and memorized formula. This isn't magic. You're talking to a person, a perfect, incredible, omnipotent person, but still a person. So have a conversation with him. Once you go back to that, anytime, oh my gosh, when I catch myself in a vain repetition, just blah, 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 please bless me with a good day, thank you for this day, all that meaningless stuff, I stop and I go, oh, sorry, Father. So I guess I'm feeling a little disconnected right now. I was thinking about what I wanted to do today. Speaking of which, what do you think about, you just got to catch yourself and shift out of that. Now, there's a wrench that can kind of be thrown into the works and get in your way when you're trying to connect with him. And it kind of has to do with your purpose on earth, your point in being here. If you're not moving forward, you're not going to have much to say. There are so many times when I pray and I'm just like, Father, I don't have anything to say. I watched Netflix for 8 hours, ate a lot of ice cream. I didn't do anything. What do you have to talk about? See, what you're doing in your life kind of limits the amount of intimacy you can get into. I mean, in those moments you can say, I've been feeling really down lately, and that's why I've binge watched. And so you can share about that. And I would recommend that you do if you're on that level of disconnection, because that'll help you fix it. We're getting close to the end of this video. But before we move on and you watch your homework video and you put this stuff into action, we need to talk about pickles. What do you need to make a pickle? Obviously, you need the cucumber, you need the spices, you need the brine, but that's not everything. You need time and consistency. If you put the cucumber in the brine and then take it out 5 minutes later, You don't have a pickle, you just have a salty cucumber. In order for you to change, to learn how to connect, to learn how to get answers to your prayers, it's going to take time. You're going to have to soak in that brine. You're going to have to soak in the light you receive from connecting with God. And the more time you spend there, the faster you'll change. Now, if you go for perfect, you're going to fall on your face every time. I don't expect you to be perfect, neither does God. If we're to look at your progress, if we're to look at the progress of my life on a graph, there are a lot of downs in there, and it's hard to see that there's any progress at all unless we average it out and find the trend line in there. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to have periods where you back away and you're not really trying too hard. It's normal, but when you catch yourself on that downward spiral, will you try to stop yourself a little faster this time? You can do that by committing now that you're simply going to keep a schedule as you watch these videos and do the homework assignments. You may want to do one a week. That's not maybe too overwhelming, and if it is, we'll try one every 2 weeks. But commit to yourself that you are going to try to step up your game just a little bit. If you could commit just 5 minutes a day, you can do that, right? If you don't have 5 minutes to spend connecting with God, you need to cut something out because your life is way too full. So commit to something small and doable so that you can get the consistency. Because remember, we're trying to cut out those long periods of not doing anything. Your goal is only this far away. And if you take a step every day, it's not going to take you very long before you get there. All right, now if there's anybody out there who is my personality type, who just likes knowledge for knowledge's sake, and maybe has had this on in the background while they do something else, stop it. I love to learn. I love to just watch lectures. I have YouTube going constantly. But again, knowledge without application is useless. This isn't just interesting. This is effective if you use it. So please, commit that you will do the homework. Because again, you're going to get out of this program what you put into it. If you've stuck it out this far to the end of the video, then I know who you are. You're my people. You're like me. You want more. You know there's more out there. You want to have greater light in your life, greater knowledge, greater joy. It's not a coincidence that you found this video. This is the right time for you, and it doesn't matter what's come before. It doesn't matter what failures have been in your past. They've all led you to this point. And you're here now for a reason. This is the beginning of an adventure. The greatest adventure you will ever have. To come to know God. And through that experience, come to know who you are.